Welcome to the Slut Next Door podcast, where we dive deep into desire, unravel kinks and fetishes, and explore the deliciously naughty side of self discovery. I'm Beatrix Vale, an erotic audio creator, and your guide to all things kinky and curious. So let's begin. Episode 2, we're going to be talking all about audio porn. I'm going to be answering the questions: what makes erotic audio porn so uniquely arousing? Why does it feel so intimate and so personal? And why do so many find it more powerful than visual porn? This is a special topic for me as I am in love with creating audio porn. I have built a career crafting sensual and immersive experiences, so I'm very excited to cover this topic. So, I'm going to dive into the psychology of porn, the art of erotic storytelling, and a little behind the scenes of producing erotic audio, and some tips on how you can enjoy audio porn. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe and follow. And as always, you are welcome to visit the link in my bio to dive deeper into my own immersive and erotic audios. So, let's talk about the psychology of audio porn. So, erotic audios really engage the imagination. I think it allows the listener to create the perfect fantasy in their minds. And sure, visual porn can do that as well, but you're kind of pigeonholed into what that producer or director wants you to see, what they want you to feel, where I feel like with audio porn, your mind is the director, the producer in a way. And I think what's really cool is it allows the listener to become the main character if they wish. You know, if you're listening to a role play audio, you get to be like part of that porn in your mind. And I think what comes close to that with visual porn is perhaps point of view style porn, where it's just a person and there's no other partner. So you're able to kind of imagine that you are doing the things in the video to that person. But comparatively, I think erotic audio really stimulates the mind more because you're taking away the sense of vision, seeing the porn. So it allows your brain to kind of fire off, I think, even more. And I think for some, it becomes almost meditative in a way because there's not very many moments in our lives nowadays where we truly just kind of slow down and we aren't stimulated by a screen. So when you pop in some audio porn, you're truly tuning out, tuning into this one space and tuning into your mind, allowing your mind to imagine. It's that imagination that audio porn pulls out that I think no other porn does. And then you've got people that are sensitive to ASMR, like bring brain tingles, from someone's voice or, you know, sound effects that may be used, like the sounds of sex. And I think our brain is the largest sex organ. And I think that audio porn is just like pouring nourishment into that sex organ. And I don't think that audio porn would be for everyone. I think that you need to be pretty aroused mentally by sex. You're either interested in the sounds of sex, or you're just a fan of dirty talk, or you need your brain stimulated in order to, truly enjoy being aroused and giving yourself pleasure through masturbating. And I believe that audio porn allows you to really just tune into the moment, into that particular kink, into your own arousal, whatever it is that's, heating that fire, and removes any distractions of visual imperfections. Not, I mean, there's porn and porn stars that are absolute perfection, but maybe there's a way their co-star reacted, or maybe you don't like, I know a lot of men that don't want to see dick in porn, whatever it is, whatever visual thing that might take you out of that moment. Audio porn removes any of those types of distractions. But I think the biggest thing is how audio porn and erotic audios allow for this immersive kind of experience. And I feel like it's, helping your brain fire in ways that no other kind of sexual content can do. I remember the first audio porn I had listened to, I just kind of happened upon it. And it was like on Pornhub. And I was surprised because I had no clue that erotic audios existed. So I just happened to turn it on and I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. And I just kept listening. And it's not like the gentleman had a voice that was over the top sexy, it was his deliver style, the kind of primal noises that he made as he was moaning. And I'll never forget that first file I listened to. It was, it allowed me just to relax into that moment where, we all love porn, right? Porn's really fun to watch and really hot, but there's something to the audio porn that's just a little bit more quiet, if you will. I may not be pulling up the right word, but it definitely quiets my mind. Not that I'm totally sitting there silent in my mind, but I'm just kind of in the moment. I'm immersed into my pleasure. And I think that just everyone should try at least one erotic audio, men and women. And I feel like it might change their masturbation game. um, okay, so we're going to talk about now the art of erotic storytelling. So there definitely is a art to it, because there's different types of audio, and what I'm going to be talking about are more so like the role play audios, because there's some audios, they call them ramble faps, where someone just simply lays back and masturbates, turns on their mic, and kind of just spurts out whatever comes out of their mouth, whatever. And that, that's hot. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to be talking about kind of role play audios. So, the biggest thing is, I think overall, the script or the overall audio should match the rhythm of like a typical physical sexual encounter. And what I mean by that is that usually there's some foreplay, and it's very sensual and whatever. And then the typical sexual experience will increase in pace and intensity, right? And so when I'm thinking about a role play audio, I'm trying to think of someone sitting there masturbating, and I'm, I'm gonna match my pace and my tone and the overall just vibe to their climax. So starting a little bit more softer typically, and then once that audio ends, there better be some like super increase in pace and a change in the voice that's much more like urgent. So it's a lot different than I think if you're writing like erotica, written porn where, like a romance novel or whatever. I feel like those are more, let's talk about the super fine details of, scenes and very descriptive, where audio porn is also descriptive, but I believe a good role play audio, the sounds that are coming out of my mouth should be urgent enough to make someone climax because that's the generally the point is to make someone climax. And I think another crucial piece of an erotic audio is sensory stimulation. So since there's no visual, there's no, I'm not touching you. I have to create words and experiences that call upon your senses of taste, smell, touch, visual. So there's an art to that as well. And then there's an art to voice modulation. So, like adjusting pitch and tone and volume of your voice to convey, certain feelings or meanings. And that becomes, like I said, just an art form in itself. Like, no one wants to listen to an audio where someone's tone is very even, like this. I want you to be horny. I want you to come. So the tone of your voice and I like I mentioned before, it has to match the pace of sex. So when someone's climaxing, when you think about that moment happening, usually like your brain, your heartbeat is moving at this like increased pace. So I believe that a voice should be, there's just urgency in your voice and you're going to climax now, It's it's using your voice to, and I talk about this in hypnosis a lot, like my voice is going to pull out your cum. And so there's different ways to do that with your pitch and your tone and the volume, like unless there's a soft ASMR file, it's not gonna be like, I need you to come right now. It's not gonna be all soft, it's typically going to be very urgent. And there's just definitely an art to that. And this is what I personally really like. I love a good challenge. Like I've mentioned, I like to be mentally stimulated. So creating erotic audios, it calls for a lot of mental power. When I'm creating audios, man, my brain is just like firing, especially, and I'm especially talking about improv audios. Like, I've gotten to the point, and I wasn't like this at first. If I'm doing role play audios, I like to improv those. And what I mean by that is I just speak from the top of my head, basically. I give myself an outline. Like I have a plan of the general outline of the audio, but I will feed the audio with my raw mental power, if you will. But that takes a lot of brain power out of me. And if I'm performing a script, I think some people might think, well, that sounds pretty easy. All you got to do is read. But at least for me, when I'm reading a script, it's weird. Let's see if I can try to explain this. So, like, my brain is reading ahead while my mouth is performing. So, I'm anticipating the next tone or, volume or pitch that I'm going to do for the next set of words I'm going to say, if that makes any sense. And that takes a lot of brain power too. I mean, it's just being like super in the moment. And, another thing too is if I'm reading a script, and generally I write my own scripts. Um, I just That's how I prefer it. I want to make original content. I don't want to create a script that is put out there and, many people can use it. I've done that before a few times, but generally I'm writing my own stuff. And, you know, s- there might be a sentence that I read or perform, and I might kind of go off script and pull more from that, like I just thought it sounded good and we're going to talk about that more kind of thing. But I think what makes audio good audio is, of course, like having a nice voice is helps, right? But I think even more than that as well is how it's delivered. And just so you know, I love to tell this story because it's funny. I had literally no clue that I had a nice voice until I started doing phone sex. No one told me in my life that I had a nice voice, and we all don't like the sound of our own voices. But yeah, I had no flipping clue, and I wish I would have just known earlier in my life. But so having a nice voice is great, but there's different ways to speak that really pull at the listener's arousal and their interest. Like you've got a very sensual way to talk, and it's just a voice control. And this has taken me a very long time to really know this part of my voice and really make it like really honey like, very sensual. And, I make a lot of femdom content. So I always like to say, you know, yelling or speaking in a very commanding way has its place. It definitely does. But I think humiliation is best served from a woman's feminine voice. I think it just stings harder, but there still can be like a commanding dominance in your voice that I think works in the right places. So that's another thing is knowing when to pull out these different styles in the voice. But, if I'm saying something like, let's take an example. The phrase, go to the corner and get on your knees. Okay, so if I say that in my sensual example that I just gave, go to the corner and get on your knees. I felt like that wasn't delivered the best, but you can, like, from that, it sounds like, ooh, what's she gonna come do to me? That sounds so lovely. Where if I say it more like, go to the corner and get on your knees, it's more, oh, I'm in trouble. And there's people that really chase after that feeling of, oh, I'm in trouble. Um, so there's definitely the way you say something, there's pauses. And I think it just takes practice hearing yourself say things. Um, like I've noticed that if I am performing something that's not so explicitly sexy, I feel confident in what I'm giving, but I've noticed when I start talking about very explicit words and phrases, I can hear the arousal in my voice. And, that leads me to another point, actually. People ask me, well, they used to ask me, um, and I'm talking about when I'm doing role play audios, not hypno. I've been asked before, do you masturbate when you record? I cannot. I've never been able to do that because I I get kind of dumb when I'm being pleasured. So, um I can dirty talk, but it's not as good. So, of course, like if I'm crafting a role play audio, I don't want to be um speechless. um but this is to say that I I feel like I spend every day aroused. I get very aroused making audios. I am turned on by the things that I'm making, and I can tell on audios when that arousal comes through. I can almost hear it coming out of my voice. So, that's why I say when anyone's talking to me about making content, I always say you have to love what you do because if, for one, it's going to come out of your content, and second, unrelated, who wants to do this every day if you don't love it? Like, yeah. So, arousal coming out of the voice is, I definitely think, a very key component to a good audio. And then there's just so many fun avenues to go down in terms of erotic audio creation. Like in my world, I'm living in a lot of femdom niches. So like my hypnophiles, that's a whole art, because your voice has to like generally be pretty soft, getting someone into hypnotic trance, so that voice is very controlled, and it's actually harder to give that hypno voice versus when I'm just doing a role play kind of audio, because the voice has to be so controlled, very slow, and it's not very natural to speak this way. So it's very, very controlled. And I don't know if you've ever tried this, but whispering a lot is pretty hard too. You actually get out of breath because you're not taking normal, you know, breaths when you're whispering. And then you've got, like, for me, I I love doing my mommy dom audios because that's a whole nother voice style where it's just very maternal and lots of good boys, just very firm yet super nurturing. Mommy dom. And then where it gets fun, I've done some mommy doms that are humiliating, which are some of my personal favorites because if I'm talking in my mommy voice and I'm getting very, it's almost like a little baby talk. And then I'm also giving stinging humiliation in that talk. It's just such a special vibe that's unusual and interesting and intriguing, in my opinion. I just could literally dork out on the art of erotic audio, and I never get to unless I'm doing something like this, a podcast. So next, let's talk about kind of the behind the scenes of producing erotic audios. And then I'm going to end with some tips on where to find audio porn if you don't know, and some tips on how to enjoy it too. So, when it comes to, here's some of my secrets that I don't mind sharing. Um, when making audios, no matter what it is, role play, hypno, whatever, trigger words are everything. And when I say trigger words, what I mean by that are arousal trigger words. So I believe that every kink and fetish have certain arousal trigger words that, when they are heard by someone that is a fan of that kink or fetish, immediately they become aroused in some sort of state, whether it's just a little tickle in their brain or immediate sexual arousal. Um, those words are crucial. And so I find them to be strategic things to use in audios as well. Like, I might sprinkle them at the beginning, but by the end, I am forcing them down your throat. Because, like I mentioned at the beginning, I believe audio should mirror the rhythm of sex. So I'm going to strategically use those words in very teasing ways at first, but then they're going to be insanely thrown at you by the end. I used to actually, when I first started doing phone sex, I had this big fear of, being on the phone in the heat of a moment with someone and me just going like brain dead and forgetting what to say next and just ruining the whole moment. So what I did is I would create these little files and I would list out all the trigger words within a certain kink. So let's just say, for example, cuckold trigger words, or mommy dom trigger words. And so if I was on the phone with someone who I knew was a fan of cuckold, I'd leave that list up. So if I got to a point where I'm like, oh crap, what do I say next? Those words would inspire me or help me know what to say. And now they're just mentally in there because I do this so much. So that is a behind the scenes little tool that I have that I think is just super valuable when delivering erotic audio. Another little behind the scenes tidbit is I like to move when I am creating audios. And what I mean by move is, I don't know, there's sometimes I don't think about moving, so it's hard to give you examples, but I can think of moments where if I'm really in it, I can notice that um, kind of my hips are moving, or like my body is moving. I don't know if there's been times where I'm recording and I'm like, why am I sitting like this? Because I get in the moment. Like, I lose myself when I'm making audios. I lose myself in the moment, and that's so enjoyable for me. Um, but like, there will be sometimes I think, what was I looking at through that whole audio? I have no idea what I'm looking at. That's how lost I am. I'm lost in that moment. Um, just, I guess, visualizing the scene of the audio, that is what I'm seeing. I thought this would be a fun inclusion in the behind the scenes, to include challenges. So some of the challenges are, some of my fans have noticed there are some files where you can hear birds chirping, and that's because I live on the third floor, of a building, and so the trees are, like, right there by my window, and in the warmer months, those birds are just right out there, right outside my window, and luckily, it's not a big distraction because it's usually a relaxing sound, but it's definitely a joke that we've had. You can hear the chirping birds sometimes. There was one file. Oh my gosh, it was so aggravating. I knew I could hear a dog barking in on the floor below me, but it was so faint that I didn't think that my mic was picking it up. Well, it did. That so things that are happening outside definitely affect definitely become challenges. There's times that I have to completely stop recording because someone with a loud car drives by that totally annoys me. Um, oh, the landscapers, my goodness. I mean, it's great when they come by the place that I live. Obviously, I like there to be lawn mowed and the shrubs kept, but they are so loud and there's just no recording during that time. So, those are definitely challenges that I have faced. And another, real life challenge is, and I'm pretty good at recognizing this. Like if I'm not in a good place mentally, I won't record. That's not going to be good for me or you if you're listening to my audio. So, that's a challenge is I like to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. I have hobbies that I do that kind of balance me out, and I know when to stop. Like yesterday, I just wasn't feeling, at my top level, so I took a break and took a nap, in the afternoon because I just don't know how anyone could do this kind of work and, be in a place that's not very great, like you're stressed or depressed, whatever. I just don't know how you could push through where when I've had my former jobs, like regular office jobs, like you can push through. Like if you don't feel good, you can still push through. It sucks, but you can do it. But with this work, I don't know how it can be done. So that's definitely a challenge of erotic audio creation. And I'll leave you with a few tips for listening to audios, where to find them too. I highly suggest headphones, especially when it comes to my hypno content, because there's oftentimes I'm using very interesting effects where things are panning to both sides of your earphones, and if you're listening on a speaker, that won't happen. Also, with headphones, I think that my voice or anyone's voice is just going to come in just deeper. It's gonna feel like it's coming in deeper to your head if those headphones are on, and you're able to capture all the lovely details of someone's voice when you're wearing those headphones. Definitely, I suggest this all the time, even if you're just, like, having a gooning session, like, have a date with yourself if you can. If you're able to light some candles, set the lighting, get comfortable, wear your favorite PJ pant, whatever it is. Really, make a moment out of it for yourself. I also highly suggest making a mind movie. And what I mean by that is as you listen to the audio, really work hard at stimulating that imagination and, you know, make the things come alive in your head. Make a mind movie. I do that when I'm, delivering the audio, that I'm literally imagining these things happening in my head. And I think the same should be happening with the listener, really activating your brain. It's just going to heighten the experience. So if you don't know, there's many places you can find audio porn, and some of them may be a little surprising. Reddit is a big place for the audio world. There's Gone Wild Audio, um, the subreddit Erotic Hypnosis, Dark Side Playground. There are a ton of different types of audio porn experiences that you can find within Reddit, and typically are all free. You can go into Pornhub. That one was a surprising one for me. There is a big audio community, if you will, of artists giving free content on Pornhub, X Hamster, pretty much any of the tube sites. And then you have where you can um, pay for premium audio clips. For example, in my loyal fans, I have an audio clip store, and also within the subscription, you get a lot of audios. And then you also have places like Clips for Sale and I Want Clips, which typically are known for their video clips. But again, I have recently started selling clips on there, and it's been great. And you can find a lot of audios on those sites. And I'm a little biased, but I think my audios are great, the greatest in the world. So you should be listening to them. No, I'm kidding. Just find someone that you connect with. First, I think probably the voice is what pulls people in. Um, but pay attention to their tags. Usually, audio creators are pretty good at tagging their content. Like, what I mean by tagging, telling you what kind of themes are in it. Um, and then eventually, once you really start digging into someone's work, I think you start to grab hold of their style. Um, you almost feel this parasocial like connection with them, I think. So, enjoy the wide world of erotic audio. And I really hope that you check out mine. Cause like I said, I mean, I think I'm the best, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm way too humble. I would love if you would check mine out if you haven't already. But I also wanted to thank a few of you for commenting um, on my episode 1. It's very exciting for me to know that you're listening and you're excited and engaged. So, please feel free to comment and like. It does help me, getting this podcast out, having engagement on it. It helps me personally, but it also helps the podcast in terms of algorithms and everything. So, if you liked this episode, um, if something stimulated your imagination, let me know in the comments. And I hope I was able to activate your mind on the theme of erotic audio porn and be able to answer why it's so arousing, why it's so intimate and personal, and why it's such a powerful form of erotic content. Now, next week, I'm going to be covering one of my favorites. I mean, all time favorite kinks. I'm so pumped to do this one, cuckold. So, whether you're going to be curious or for sure you're a cuck fan, I think you're going to love it. I know I'm going to love it. But thanks for listening to episode 2, and I will see you on the next episode. And that's a wrap for this episode of The Slut Next Door, where we dive deep into the raw, unapologetic truths of human desire. If you loved what you heard today, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a juicy moment. Want to connect with me outside the podcast? Click the link in my bio where you can find lots of juicy content and options. Until next time, I'm Beatrix Vale, your slut next door. And I'll see you in the next episode.